Gaza now, where people driven from their homes and dealing with hunger and disease are facing a new problem, and it's rain. A torrential downpour has turned Gaza into a muddy mess. Thousands of homeless Gazans were forced to sleep in puddles on the ground. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, 9 Israeli soldiers were killed during an operation in northern Gaza. It's amongst Israel's largest single losses of soldiers since the ground campaign began. Let's bring in CNN's Alex Marquardt in Tel Aviv with the latest. I mean, these scenes of the mud, I mean, people can normally deal with it, but not when they're sleeping outside.
Yeah, I mean, Max, it's the Middle East. It may be warm during the day, but it is certainly cold at night. And we just saw extraordinary levels of rainfall last night. Some of the hardest rainfall that I've ever seen, and hail. And it was hard not to think or try to imagine how these hundreds of thousands of people are coping. Humanitarian officials believe that almost the entire Gaza Strip has been displaced. 1.9 million people out of a total population of 2.2. So many of them have fled to the southern part of the Gaza Strip to get away from that fierce fighting. There is not nearly enough aid. And when we see those aid trucks coming in, we have seen Gazans swarming them because they are so desperate for food, for water, for medicine, for shelter. Medical officials have warned that this is a breeding ground for epidemics. And then you just add this horrible weather into the mix as well. Those official shelters that are managed by the UN and other aid groups are bursting at the seams. So people are sleeping out in the streets. They're sleeping in whatever makeshift tents they can make. And then you have these flash floods and torrential downpours that just make the situation all the more miserable. Max, you and I spoke yesterday when I was at the Kerem Shalom crossing, and it really highlighted the fact that all of the aid is still coming in through Egypt, and that bottleneck there at the Rafah crossing is really limiting the amount of aid that can get in, on top of the fact that there is such chaos on the other side. So now we see the U.S. very publicly, the White House openly, speaking directly to CNN, saying that Israel needs to open up that Kerem Shalom crossing in southern Israel to allow more aid to directly go into Gaza. Max?